What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast presented by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network. As it says on the screen, I'm Fatboy Bo. That is Fatboy Brant. Brant, all of the NFL teams have officially reported to NFL training camp. We've got some news coming out. We've got some videos of some of these, premier rookies. And in order to celebrate the NFL season officially basically being here, draft season's getting ready to be in the thick swing of things. You and I decided last week and put it out there that we were going to come at everybody this week with our My Boys episode. Guys that we can't leave drafts with, guys that we're without, guys we have to trade for in other leagues where we don't own them, just guys that we want to own everywhere because we expect big things from these guys, Brant. It's one of our favorite episodes of the year. It's probably right up there with the Thanksgiving Day episode that we do and even Christmas week, where we get to have copious amounts of food and watch football. But, this time of year hits a little different because we've been in that void without football so long. And at the tail end of this month, Brant, tail end of next month, there is still 2 days left in July. Tail end of next month, we're in the full swing of things, and it's go time. So I'm excited. You're excited.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the Fatboyz Flag plants. We're getting our flags out. We're planting them today. Guys that we will either A, go back and be like, I called it, or B, go back and be like, well, don't I feel stupid? But we always do own it. We always do talk about it. We go back and forth. This is normally a good episode where we start to really see where our minds are as we are going in. As you alluded to, we're heading into our big league draft that we do, and then a couple more drafts here and there as we've done a few dynasty rookie ones, and we're heading into ours. It's starting to really get in the full swing. Like you said, everybody's reporting. I think this past Sunday is the last Sunday we have for the rest of the year with no football. There's at least a football being thrown next Sunday.
Yes.
Whether you watch it or don't be placing bets on it, please. I'm a degenerate. Please don't put money on that game. I don't even do that.
Yeah. Got a message here from Jennifer saying, hey guys, it's all up from here. I'm excited and glad to be here for another season. Jennifer, welcome back. I think this is like 3 or 4 years going strong with Jennifer hanging out with the Fatboyz. But yeah, Brant, like you said, we're getting into it, and we had to put the flag plants out there. And I kind of want to start the show, and I'll give you a chance to go back and forth with me on this one a little bit. There was a name that I was on the fence about doing tonight. I brought that name up to you, and you said, good thing you didn't do that name because you were on the fence about that guy. Feels like he's got to be an honorable mention, my boy, or our boy, I guess in this case. He's got to be a flag plant for the show. Let's talk about Josh Downs a minute because we were both close to putting him in our guys episode here. We both think that Josh Downs is somebody who's going to have a very, very good season this year. And usually we try not to have the same my guys just because it kind of makes for an anticlimactic show. But we were both right there thinking about putting him in our top 3, people we have to own. So, Brant, tell me what are your thoughts on Josh Downs and why he almost made the cut for you but didn't quite get there.
All the targets are back open with Michael Pittman out the door. They're open for the grab. I know Alec Pierce is on everyone's list. Everyone's all about Alec Pierce. I believe he already some uncertainty for week 1. He's already been banged up, talked about his ankle, everything else. Downs is just a guy that to me, he goes later in drafts. He gets forgot about. You got one Pierce that's jumping all over Jonathan Taylor, and then there's Joshua Downs, who gets moved all over the formation and seems to always find himself with a couple catches a game. But this is a guy that a full off season with Daniel Jones back, getting a full season with him. And this is a guy that I just feel like they're going to find a way to move all over the formation. He's quick downfield. He runs the quick slants that can turn, a 5-yard pass. He can get the quick screens that turn that 5-yard pass into 20, 25 yards. He's just a guy I feel like they're going to try to get the ball into his hands all year.
Yeah, I agree. Michael Pittman being out the door, I think that vacates a lot of targets. Downs is, I think, one of the more shifty players that he's going to find, slots to get open and get wide open, get open and allow Daniel Jones to get comfortable with him there. I think he's got potential for yak upside with those targets as well. I just think he's a guy who's going to play outside, inside in the slot. They'll just move him all over and give himself or allow him to be an easy target for Daniel Jones. Kind of reminds me of almost, in my opinion, what I think they're going to do with him is kind of what they did with Wan'Dale Robinson with Daniel Jones in New York, where it was like 115 targets, for 900 yards. The targets didn't go anywhere, but in PPR leagues, it still hits. And again, at his current ADP, which I'll look up here in a second while I allow you to address this question we have on the side here. At his current going price, it's too cheap not to buy in on Josh Downs. And again, when you and I agree on things, either really good things happen or really bad things happen. And I'm erring on the side of this being a really good thing for Josh Downs. So I'm going to let you hit this question really quick while I look up his current ADP on Sleeper.
With one thing I will say, it's not a Chargers receiver, so we won't be going back and forth on that one. Any
Correct.
concerns about the big-time players like Gibbs or Bijan basically holding out of practice? No, they know their offense. They know what's going on. Bijan knows he's the number one. There's no concern with me. I think those guys will be ready to go week one. You got to think both those guys probably will see maybe 10 preseason snaps total, if that. They're not going to see the field much prior to the season. They're going to save their best assets on those teams. And so, no, I don't have any concerns with that.
Yeah, I will say this. This is the very same situation, Brant, you and I were talking about with Christian Gonzalez and Devon Witherspoon. Both of these guys are wanting to reset the running back market, and they're waiting to see the other domino fall first so they can get paid more. I think both the Lions and the Falcons franchises will be playing these negotiations close to the vest. It wouldn't shock me at all for both of these guys to have contracts before the season hits, or extensions before the season hits, excuse me. But no, I've got no worries. I expect as long as both these guys stay healthy, they will both be running back in some way, shape, or form or the other. They'll be running back 1, 2, or 3. I'll give Christian McCaffrey the option to potentially get back up there as he's aging. But yeah, I think these guys will both be top 3 running backs in the National Football League as long as they stay healthy. So no concerns.
Absolutely.
Real quick, Alec Pierce is going as the wide receiver 31 on Sleeper. Josh Downs, wide receiver 58, 126.5 is his total ADP. So talk about a late round steal, whether it's a 10-man or a 12-man, he's going after round 10. So definitely a lot of value there for Josh Downs that late. You're talking about a bench player regardless of what league you're in. And I think that's just an astronomical value for a guy like that.
Okay, absolutely.
All right, Brant, take us away with your very first flag plant, your numero uno, if you will.
I'm going to go with this one because one of mine is going to roll into at least one of yours because I do know one of my guys. So I'm trying to save him until I can roll it right on into that because it's always a nice transition. This is a guy I've been on for quite a few years since he did come out. Injuries have plagued him. I've talked about him some this offseason. And that's Jonathan Brooks. He's already coming out. He's running with the ones. And he's a late round draft pick. I mean, you're talking – I'm not even sure where it's at. I'm down here I don't think it's that far down.
I will look it up. You just keep going.
Please do. There it is. 138 is his ADP in Sleeper. This is a steal way late in the draft. Coming out pre-NFL draft, he had home run speed, his vision and patience. He was at 3 down back ability. He's finally fully healthy. The Carolina Panthers did great with him to, allow him to get fully healthy, nurse that along, not rush him back in. Rico Dowdle walked. I know that Chuba did sign the other thing, but already he's seeing work. He's seeing work with the ones. And reality with where he's being drafted, the ceiling is he could be a low end RB1 or a high end RB2. It would be his ceiling here. And, the best case scenario where I do honestly believe that he's going to be by week 4, a flex option, and you get him at pick 138 in drafts. His biggest risk is his health. We've seen, him with his home run speed. We've seen the ability he had. He did back up what is probably the best running back in the NFL there at Texas. So yes, of course it was hard for him to find the backfield there for the first couple of years in Texas. But when he did, he was explosive. I think he was the second back off the board that year, maybe the third. I could be wrong. That's correct. And like I said, with Rico gone, that opens up a whole bunch. That backfield was split 50-50, and Rico handled 50% of the snaps last year 10 times. So he was the in a real committee, he was the lead back in a committee. And I think Jonathan Brooks has a chance to really take over that backfield and really explode this year. And like I said, the ceiling with this kind of a pick, and I've got him everywhere. I've held on to him for the 2 years that he's been hurt. I've held on to him in our dynasty. I've sent a couple out in some other leagues to try to acquire him while people are forgetting about him. That's the only reason I don't like doing this episode, is then when people hear it, then I try to make trades. They're like, no, you're a lot higher on him. But yeah, Jonathan Brooks is a guy that I think that he's going to take over this backfield. I think by week 5 or 6, you're going to be talking about him seeing over 50% of the snaps. And by playoff time, I think this is a guy that could be the lead back and help you win championships. I'm not going to say he's going to win you one, but if you have this guy and he's putting up RB2 numbers and you're starting him in your flex 1 or flex 2, this is an amazing upside.
Yeah, running back 41 on Sleeper right now. His class was the Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Trey Benson class. It's been a dumpster fire of a running back class, with the exception of Bucky Irving, who went pretty late in most rookie drafts. But yeah, like you alluded to, everything that's coming out, and granted, it's super, super, super early in camp, right? So a lot of noise this time of year is what I'll call it. But everything that's coming out of Carolina is just glowing about him, how shifty he is, how good he looks with the ball in his hands. And yeah, like you alluded to, Brant, that 138 ADP, I will say this, I don't think it's probably there 3 weeks from now. I think it's probably much closer to the 100s because that hype of the unknown and what could be, I think, will start rising to the top for him. I did trade for him in a few leagues this offseason, and I got him for, basically as a throw-in in a couple of deals in 2 different leagues. But I kind of think, like you're saying, Brant, at his current price point, even if he was like in the 115 range, I think when you're talking about getting a running back in the 40s or late 30s of the running back position that ends up having a chance to be a 1, if not a real high 2, that's just good bang for your buck. And I think with Dave Canales at the head of the Carolina Panthers, that offense should take another step forward this year. Bryce Young should get a little bit better. The offensive line should be a little bit better. Yeah, running behind or having a running back in that backfield we saw last year bears fruit. And I think if there's a chance of Jonathan Brooks being slightly more athletic with fresher legs than Chuba Hubbard, it could be really good thing for ADP 138.
Okay.
All right, so good thing you said we're not going to talk about Chargers wide receivers, because not so fast, my friend. I'm coming at you with Quentin Johnston, Brant. I did this 2 years ago. I didn't last season, and he came out swinging last year, the first couple weeks of the season. He is currently wide receiver 48 in draft boards, pick 108. So also going pretty late for where he finished last year. He was the wide receiver 34, but that was with Keenan Allen in town. And that was not including his new offensive coordinator, who I think is going to have this offense taken to another level, and Mike McDaniel. Back-to-back seasons with 8 touchdowns for Quentin Johnston. Last year, he was on pace for 103 targets, 61 receptions, 830 yards, and 10 total touchdowns, which would have had him finishing the season higher in point totals than both Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey. So he would have been the wide receiver 1 number-wise there. He only played in 14 games. So 8 touchdowns through 14 games. Like I said, the drops problem he had early in his career was atrocious, but we've seen that get better each and the last couple of years. Still tied to a really solid quarterback in Herbert, who a lot of people think takes another step forward this year with Mike McDaniel. I do expect the target leader in this offense to be Ladd McConkey still. I won't pull my punches about that because, again, very similar to Josh Downs. I think he's just going to be one of those guys that finds space. When you talk about a field stretcher, playmaker, needs something to happen, kind of a guy, I expect it to be Quentin Johnston for the Los Angeles Chargers. I think that, again, Mike McDaniel being, able to have a strong-armed quarterback opposite of noodle-armed Tua that he had the last couple of years there in Miami, I think there'll be some big plays dialed up in this offense. I think it'll be a really exciting offense to own pieces in. And again, you're going to be going up against teams week in and week out, like, the Kansas City Chiefs, where you're going to have to put points on the board to win. You're going to have to put points on the board to beat the Denver Broncos, who do have a stout defense. So that may be a challenge. And again, the Raiders, I think, will be one of the worst teams in the NFL again this year, probably, but I think they're on the up and up. But I think this is a team that's going to have to put points on the board to do it, compete this year. And I think when you talk about a guy who's had 8 touchdowns the last 2 years, he's learning how to use his size a little bit in the National Football League, kind of living up to his pedigree finally. I think the sky's the limit for Quentin Johnson. I think he comes out hot early again this year, except for he doesn't fall off like he did last year.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. I absolutely love this Chargers offense. I see a lot of people wanting to get pieces of it. I'm one of those. I don't think I really own too much of it because I have shied away from it the last few years, but they're going to get both offensive line that they were missing back healthy. They're going to give Herbert some time. Herbert, I honestly believe Herbert finishes inside the top 3 quarterbacks this year. He's one of my favorite QBs to go after. And like you said, I think Ladd is the leader, but I do think Quentin Johnston does take over. I think Mike finds a way to get him open. I was going to end up doing. I was going to end up calling him Mike McDonald, and I know that ain't the right one. He's going to find a way to end up getting him open and scheming ways to get him the ball. And like you said, he's learned how to use his body. This offense is going to take a huge leap forward, and I honestly think he's going to be a bigger part of this offense than a lot of people are thinking about. I know everyone's on Hampton right now being the best, one of the best pieces to own. And I think that's one of the scariest pieces to own. I do think Quentin Johnston is a guy to get out. Like you said, he's getting drafted a lot later than Ladd McConkey. So this is an easy steal for me.
Yep, absolutely. Tony, you are tuned into the right episode, sir. This will be talked about shortly, not presently, but shortly.
Okay. All right. So we'll be talking about that shortly then. So I'll save this last one right here. I guess I got my next 2 in a row though, so I'll wait. My next one's a quarterback. This is you and me are both firm believers in redrafts of sitting back and waiting on quarterbacks. And that's Tyler Shuck there in New Orleans. He got himself a new friend in Jordan Taysom. He got himself Travis Etienne. He still has Kamara and Olave there. He was the Saints' second-round pick in 2025. He won the job starting week 9. He was QB9 from there on in point and fantasy points per game. In that span, he had 3 of 9 games. He had multiple touchdowns. In 4 of 9 starts, he had over 270 passing yards. In 3 of 9 starts, he had 32 rushing yards. So he is going to put a little bit of rushing. He also had 3 rushing touchdowns to add on top of that. He had 21 fantasy points in 3+ games. This is a guy going as QB 20. All right. So in super flex leagues, you can sit back and you can wait and take your second QB. In regular leagues, this guy is going to most likely finish inside the top 10. Like I said, he added the new wide receiver. They added a couple new guards. They also added Noah Fant, and which has been was a good blocking tight end there in Seattle as well, and a good receiving threat as well there in Denver. They did everything they could to boost this offense. And honestly, I think that's what they had to do. They're in a division that in a lot of people's minds is wide open. I don't think it's as close as people think. I actually think there's a team that looks a lot better on paper than the rest of that division. I'm not going to say it because you already know who I think it is. But I think that New Orleans Saints are going to take a huge step forward on the offensive side of the ball, and I think this guy is going to be the main reason why. So Tyler Shuck's one of my guys.
Yeah, the NFC South's been a bottom-feeding division for several years. I do think there's a couple teams on the way up. I think the Buccaneers are the one that I think will take a step back this offseason. But, yeah, I do think that I made a lot of jokes when New Orleans drafted Tyler Shuck about being the last player born in the 90s. And how, or in the 1900s rather, and how old he was, just because it made me feel a little bit better about my quarterback situation. But then Tyler Shuck came out and looked every bit capable, I'll say. And I think the Saints have got their quarterback of the future. And there's, like you said, Brant, there's a lot of weapons there that makes it really juicy to own a quarterback throwing it to Chris Olave and Jordan Tyson. Problem is, if I can put a caveat out there, I would be shocked if he plays over 50% of the games this year with both of those 2 wide receivers on the field. I just don't expect to both of those guys have massive injury histories. Tyson's coming into the offseason with hamstring tightness and dealing with that still. Olave's a walking concussion. We'll see if those guys stay healthy. If they're both on the field for 17 games for Tyler Shuck, the New Orleans Saints probably win the NFC South, and it wouldn't shock me at all to be talking about Tyler Shuck as a top 12 quarterback this year. As long as there's not some crazy sophomore slump regression, If those guys are both healthy for a full season, it's going to be nasty hour in New Orleans, and I'm pulling for it not to be. So, we will see.
Okay.
Brant, I had a name written down on my paper here, and I crossed the name out as I started scrolling deeper and deeper and deeper through the running back world, because I told you it was going to be hard for me to come up with a running back because I had so many wide receivers I wanted to plant my flag in this year. I wasn't expecting to have my flag plant be on this running back, and I'm sure you'll have some eyebrows raised on me as I alluded to. But what would you say if I told you that at running back 24 at ADP right now, currently going as the 74th pick, was a running back that has been 15 or better in the last RB 15 or better in the last 7 of the last 8 years? Never finished. And bear in mind, his 1 year he wasn't RB 15, he was RB 21, so still 3 running back spots better. So the floor is pretty much better than where he's going at right now, and the ceiling is much, much better. And I'm leaving out the best part. There's like 4 of those 8 years where he was a running back 5 or better.
Yeah, you're talking about a steal that you're getting late in the draft. I'm not 100% sure who you're talking about as I'm looking at all these running backs.
It's 32-year-old Derrick Henry, a name that I was not expecting to plant a flag on. But my goodness, how ridiculous is it that Derrick Henry is going, even at 32 years of age, Brant, that he's going that late? You know this guy's going to be a touchdown monster. You know the Ravens' offense is going to put points on the board. As long as Derrick Henry's healthy, they're going to run him. His carries have went down a little bit each year, but he's still putting up numbers. I think he still had like 1,500 rush yards last year. So, I mean, we're talking about a guy who still produces. It's not necessarily as fun to watch as it used to be because he's not breaking those 90-yard touchdown runs anymore. But back at the last 2 seasons, Brant, he's got 16 touchdowns in the running back room. Again, that alone should be worth a top 10 pick in the running back position. He's going at running back 24, and again, I understand the age of 32. If this were a dynasty startup ranking that I was talking about right now, I'd probably be a little more okay with his current ADP and his current running back spot. But if we're talking about what I think is going to happen this year, I think Derrick Henry has another very successful year. I think Derrick Henry's probably right around that RB 12 to 15 range this year on touchdown equity alone. The fact that he's going that late outside of the top, I guess he'd be at the bottom end of a running back 2 range, is just blasphemous to me. And if you start looking at the names that are going in front of him, Brant, it's really not a debate between, for me anyway, who I would want. RJ Harvey. I'm taking Derrick Henry over RJ Harvey. Jadarian Price. I know the rookie hype is sexy. I'm taking Derrick Henry over Jadarian Price. I'm taking Derrick Henry over Cam Scatterbo. I'm taking Derrick Henry, well, maybe not over Travis Etienne. I think that one's close. I am taking Derrick Henry over Josh Jacobs, though, with the potential looming legal issues. Probably taking him over Javonte Williams as well. So for me, I could easily see him being a top 17 running back right now in for this year's ranking, and he's not there right now. And to me, I just think that's almost criminal for what this man has done in the National Football League. And again, I know it's going to be one of those things when the bottom falls off, it's going to fall off and be ugly. But man, until that happens, I just cannot get off the Derrick Henry train. I'm all in on it for that price.
You're not the only one all in, and this is one thing. Everyone says, you look at these season totals that Vegas puts out and everything else. What if I told you they have him listed as the number 2 rush yards for the season and the number 1 touchdown scorer for running backs on the season? And they're not. They know what they're talking about there because. And I saw this the other day. I saw someone on Twitter post that, and I couldn't believe it that he was going so low. And honestly, when I started writing down names, I started obviously late with Jonathan Brooks, so I just kind of stuck to my lateness. I didn't realize Derrick Henry was going so far off until you just said it, really. I didn't even look. I just kind of scanned over it because, he's been a top 10 back almost his entire career. He's been a guy that everyone talks about. And I think it has a lot to do with the way that the NFL is going and the PPR upside and everything else. Keaton Mitchell's also gone. So that explosive back that was behind him, that was stealing carries here and there, he's gone. I know they still have Hill, I think, is still
Ali.
behind. Yeah, Ali and Hill are still behind him, but they haven't done a whole lot. They just kind of get in there and spill a little bit of time because of his age. Derrick Henry is going to be a monster this year, and they're going to use him quite a bit to keep the pressure off of Lamar Jackson as well. Yeah, this offense is, I mean, that's crazy that he's going that low. I would have never expected that until you just told me.
Absolutely. Like I said, sometimes your my guys aren't guys you expect to find. They're guys that you find value in, Brant. And there's a lot of value in Derrick Henry as the 24th running back off the board. Real quick, before you jump into your next one, Joe says, do we like the Lions or Commanders as a defense and special teams this season?
The Commanders will play the Giants twice, Dallas twice, Philly twice. And that's tough. That's tough because they both have tough offensive divisions. I think I have to go with the Commanders, though. I do think I have to go with the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm leaning Commanders. I think I kind of got into a debate in my office at work today, Brant. And as you know, there's a bleeding heart Packers fan that I share that office with, and I was trying to rationalize to him how I wasn't sure the Packers would be the best team in their division. We got to talking about the Lions, and excuse me, the Lions secondary is so depleted from last year. If Aiden Hutchinson doesn't get home early and often, this defense is not going to be great. Their secondary is beat up. Like everybody's gone. It's not going to be good next year, whether it's injury or just gone from the team. I think that Lions secondary is going to struggle. So I think I do go Commanders on that one.
Okay. All right. Which New England running back do you guys believe will have the better fantasy season? Man, Ramondre Stevenson just sticks around. I'm going to go with Stevenson because I feel like Stevenson's going to play a whole year, and I'm not 100% sure Henderson will. So I think I'm going to go with Stevenson will actually finish the year better.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Stevenson. I think he gets more carries, which I think ultimately is the deciding factor. I think obviously Henderson's more explosive, but Stevenson's going to get more carries this year, I think, which is shocking. We all thought we were going to see that kind of fade the other way, but I think Stevenson, like Brant says, just hangs around enough to be cutting into it. So I think it's Stevenson.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm saving this guy because I know that we're going to have a nice little conversation about your last one. This guy's going as wide receiver 35, 100, number 100 pick off the board, and he just got moved, traded to a new offense, and paid for the next 2 years. The last 2 seasons, no, sorry, not the last 2. Last year, down year for him. 2 years ago, finished as wide receiver 16, and he's only 2 years removed from finishing as wide receiver 9. Wide receiver 10. And that's DJ Moore going to the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen hasn't had a true number 1 wide receiver since Stephon Diggs left. What was that, 4 years ago? 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
While Diggs was in town, he didn't see anything less than 155 targets per year. And I think DJ Moore sees that kind. I don't think it's going to be that high, but I do think he sees 130 targets this year. And if you remember, every time that Caleb Williams kind of got in trouble back there in Chicago, who was the guy that always found a window for him to chuck the ball up to? The guy that won them the game against Green Bay, I think it was the last game of the season, may have been the playoff game. But DJ Moore's a guy that's going to find the opening. He's going to help Josh Allen. He's going to save Josh Allen's legs a few times where he just finds the open window and turns it in to, a 30, 40-yard gain. They went out. They knew what Allen wanted. They went and got a guy that is phenomenal at doing that, at playing backyard football. This is like Tyler Lockett was with Russell Wilson. He just always knew where to go. If DJ Moore can develop that type of chemistry during this training camp and this offseason and the preseason, this guy's going to be phenomenal for fantasy. I wouldn't be shocked to see him finish inside the top 12 just based on volume and touchdowns because he's going to find the opening. DJ Moore is one of my favorite targets to go after. I have a trade out for him in 2 leagues right now. I tried to get him done before we got on the episode, but nobody else apparently looked at him. So, but yeah, DJ Moore, I mean, you're going into one of the best offenses with arguably one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the NFL with one of the strongest arms in the NFL. DJ Moore is going to benefit from this. This is going to be one of the best career moves for him.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked, Brent, that not more people are, all over DJ Moore, so to speak, drooling, if you will. We, for the last 3 years, have said, let's get Josh Allen a wide receiver one. We thought it was Keon Coleman, gave him a couple different chances. There were 2 years ago, going into the offseason 2 years ago, we all thought it was going to be Dalton Kincaid. We were all, trying to find that next guy that could be the number one in this offense. And they go trade for one that's the instant one in this offense, and nobody's talking about it. It's really kind of an afterthought. And I think, the only thing I can think of is because of the down year last year. But yeah, if there's any sort of connection whatsoever, if there's any kind of, hey, maybe don't take off running when the play breaks down, look for this guy, DJ Moore will find a way to be there for Josh Allen. I think this connection is going to be electric. I don't know if I quite have as lofty expectations as the top 12, but I think right around that 18 to 20 range is somewhere that I think DJ Moore will finish. I think he'll have 6 to 10 touchdowns and probably anywhere from 80 to 95 receptions. I think it's going to be a good year for them. Again, Josh Allen, super talented. He's into that time in his career, which it kind of feels odd to feel this way, but he's in that part in his career where he's got to take that next step. And I think DJ Moore is that kind of wide receiver that really helps him. So yeah, I'm spot on agreeing with you on that one, Brant.
Okay.
Well, we've agreed to every one of each other has said to this point. So why not rip the Band-Aid off and get one that we won't both agree on here? There's no shocker who my last one is. It's a guy I've talked about all off season. It's a guy I talked about a lot at the end of last season. It's a guy that, we talked about last episode. It's a guy that Tony's waiting for me to quit rambling and talk about now. I think Tony's on the other side of this, if I remember from last week. But I've got Luther Burden as he's my number one, my guy. He's my number one fat boy. He's my number one, whatever you want to call it. I'm putting the eggs in the basket this year. Currently wide receiver 18 off the board, ADP's 46.6. It's high, Brant. It's high. It is high. I will say this. I think his floor is much lower than 18. If he has a down year, doesn't do what I expect him to do, it wouldn't shock me to see him finish as the wide receiver 30. However, I will tell you this. I think Luther Burden is capable. It's an outside capable, but I think he's capable of wide receiver 1 numbers. Not top 12. I'm saying number 1 overall wide receiver in the National Football League. I think he's got that kind of ability. I think he's got that kind of skill set. Last year, in the last 9 weeks that he played football, so not counting the bye week and counting the playoffs, he averaged 6.2 targets per game. So he's definitely getting involved. The last half of the season, 7 targets respectively in both of the Bears' playoff appearances. Week 17, he finished as the wide receiver 1 on the week, on the week. Definitely hit the ground or ended the season with a lot of momentum. He was at full sprint at the end of the season. I think he only picks up where he left off. And here's the most interesting thing from me, Brand. I did some deep dive on stats. Last season, he was 3rd in the NFL in yards per route run. So when he's on the field running a route, he was 3rd of all wide receivers in yards. And he was 4th in the National Football League in catch rate. So when the ball comes to him, he doesn't miss the opportunity, right? So those things, coupled with the fact that you have one of the most creative offensive minds in the game, and Ben Johnson, I won't say the most, I think that still belongs to Sean McVay, but one of the most creative minds in the game. I think you're going to scheme ways to get the ball into his hands. DJ Moore, who you mentioned, is out the door. I didn't look before I started this. It probably would have been a great thing for me to write down, but I'm sure DJ Moore is vacating 90 targets from last season. I know Colston Loveland's going to be involved. I know Romo Dunze is going to be involved. A lot of people are on the opposite end of this. I just think Luther Burden, with as versatile as he is, whether it be the slot, whether it be the outside, I think he's going to be the X factor for this offense. I think he's going to be hyper involved. I think he's going to be a 120 target guy this year, Brant. And if that happens, he's top 10 wide receiver on the season. If his touchdown equity matches, he only had 2 touchdowns all of last season. If he adds 4 more of those to go along with 120 targets. I think you're talking about this guy breaking the league next year at that 18 overall ADP for wide receivers. I'm just so in on all things Luther Burden right now. I've traded for him this offseason a couple places. I've drafted him early in a league where I got roasted for doing so. I've just put all my chips into this. I pushed all my chips into the center of the table. All my eggs are in the Luther Burden basket. I think the Bears take another step forward offensively next year. I think Caleb Williams is even better year 3. I think Ben Johnson's a little more comfortable year 2. I do. I think it's sky's the limit for this Bears offense. I think they're going to be one of the funner ones to own. And I will say this caveat, because we both said this last week and agreed on it. I think it's Luther Burden. I don't think you go wrong owning any of the Bears pass catchers because I think the offense is going to be one where everybody can get a piece. I think everybody's going to feast, but I think one's going to sit at the head of the table, and I've got that being Luther Burden.
Okay. 85. So you weren't too far off. 85 targets were vacated. So not too far off. Of those 9 games, Rome did only play in 4 of them. He saw 9, 6, 6, and 6 targets. Probably should have separated that a little differently. But, I think Rome finds a way. I didn't realize the foot was still bothering him. I have not paid much attention to that training camp, to be honest. I kind of should, because like you said, I don't think you can go wrong with owning a lot of or a piece of that Bears offense. I am on the Rome side. I just think he finds a way to get open, starts using his big body. I think he's going to be one of the first reads off the line. In a sense, I think they both see over 100 targets this year. I just think Rome goes away with a few more touchdowns if he plays the whole season. Like I said, I didn't realize the foot was still a lingering issue for him, but I think they scheme ways to get him open. The one thing that I'm going to say that I do think may put Burden in my mind a little over Rome is I think they scheme a way for Burden to touch the ball from the backfield, into rounds and else. His speed is electric, and Rome's speed isn't there. I think his route running is. I know Rome's been in great receiving cores as he was in Washington, but now they didn't turn pro very well. Those receivers didn't. But I do think Rome is the guy. I think it's going to be the big body guy. I do think he's going to be outside guy. I don't think the separation is going to be huge. I think you're talking, if this offense takes a leap, like I honestly believe they do, I think you'd be talking about 100 or about both of these guys inside the top 15, top 18 wide receivers.
Yeah, if Caleb Williams has the season I think he does, I think that's very capable for both. And as Patrick alluded to, 147 available targets from just DJ Moore and Olamide Zaccheaus, who is the new wide receiver, or not new, but returning wide receiver to the Atlanta Falcons. There once and back again. Yeah, that's insane.
Zaccheaus got that many targets.
It's insane that he had that many with DJ Moore having only 85. But yeah, I think there is a if Loveland stays healthy, if Burden stays healthy, if Odunze stays healthy, there's a world in my eyes where all 3 of these guys have great years. And that Bears offense is a lot of fun. And that would have to have Caleb Williams playing at an MVP level, which I think a lot of people think he's capable of this year. So, again, my choice would be Burden, but you can't go wrong owning a stake in that offense.
Unfortunately, I think I'm going to get to this in just a second. Unfortunately, I think you may have to wait until preseason game 2 and just the first quarter where you see which receiver is in motion more, which receiver is finding the open gaps, which receiver is running the St. Brown type route tree for Ben Johnson there. So you may have to wait, but I just minus, like I said, minus me not knowing about the foot, I would have went 100% of Rome. I probably would have argued a little bit harder, but I saw that and I'm like, okay, that kind of takes a lot of it out of there because he's not moving as much.
Mm-hmm. So Tony says my bold prediction for the season is Drake May 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Brandon, I'm going to pass this to you. I'm going to say this doesn't happen. I just think it'll be hard for Drake to repeat what he did last year. I think Drake May is a great quarterback. Him and AJ Brown, again, it's so early Drake May's not looked good in the couple days of camp from what I'm reading. If it wasn't for Kayshawn Boutte, of all people, laying out and making spectacular catches, Drake May'd be looking even worse. I know there's plenty of time to shake off the dust. I just think he was too good last year to repeat at that MVP type level. So I'm going to say he goes under both of those.
I'm taking well under both of those. The tape's out there. We saw Denver disrupt him. You saw Seattle disrupt him. The tape is out there on what you got to do to disrupt that offensive line. I know they'll work on it. They'll try to fix it. I do think that team is good. I don't think they're good enough to repeat what they did last year. I think it was, and I'll tell you this right now, I honestly don't believe Seattle repeats what we did last year. I'm not talking about us winning the Super Bowl. I don't think Seattle repeats as good of a year as we did last year because we're not sneaking up on anybody like New England did too. Those two teams kind of took the league by surprise on how good they turned out and how well they gelled. They're not sneaking up on teams this year, and I don't think Drake May has that good of a year. I'd venture to say Drake may fall out of the top 10 QBs this year. That offensive line looked rough at the end of the playoffs. I think they even had to – who did they play before Denver? Was that Houston?
It could be. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I haven't gone back. But that defense put them where they were, and I don't think that offense – A.J. Brown – if he syncs well with them, then maybe. But I don't know how well that's going to work in New England.
I think A.J. Brown will be fine. I think Drake May. I don't know as I want to go as far as to say he falls out of the top 10. I just think 5,040 is going to be really hard for him to, because again, it's not like we're sitting here talking about this being Joe Burrow with elite weapons. It's what 31-year-old A.J. Brown and then Kayshawn Boutte and Mr. Guardian Cap himself, Romeo Dobbs. I just think it's going to be hard for him to get those kind of numbers. Again, it's possible. I just don't think it's there. He's not one of my guys. I'll say that.
Yeah, he played Houston, Denver, and Seattle, where he had 179 yards against Houston, 86 passing yards against Denver, and he did have 295 against Seattle, but he also threw the ball 43 times from playing from behind so quick. I don't know. I mean, he went with the career year he had last year, finishing as quarterback 2. He only threw for 43, almost 4,400 yards and 31 touchdowns. Yeah, I don't think he can repeat that.
Probably not. But anyway, Brant, I think we came out and had three flag plants this week. Maybe next week we come out and talk about guys we wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Just an idea. Maybe we'll throw that out there and we'll see what we come up with. But I think that does sum it up for this episode. Again, one of my favorite episodes of the off season. Glad to have gotten this one in.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll go with that next week probably. So yeah, I do think that wraps us up. Sorry, I was writing that down so I don't forget. So yeah, that wraps it up for us tonight. As always, stay hungry and
stay fat, my friends.